Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. That's better. That's Cambridge. My name is Geeta Pradhan. I'm the president of the Cambridge Community Foundation. Your community foundation focused on some of the most critical issues in this city and an organization that watches out for the values of this city. We do our work by making grants to nonprofits, by advancing philanthropy, and by being in partnership with you, a civic leader. So we established the Immigrant Legal Defense Fund in Cambridge in partnership with the Mayor of Cambridge, Mayor Mark McGovern. And it was launched because we were hearing a lot of concerns about the growing humanitarian crisis in our city. It started out with the DACA issue. It went on to temporary protection status workers. It affected those who were seeking asylum. And then it went on to I think the most disturbing of all, the separation of parents and their children. And so when the opportunity came to do something about this issue, we launched the fund, we've raised money, we are giving out grants to pay for the legal defense fund of immigrants in need. But we also felt that one very important thing we needed to do was to come together as a community. So we've been hosting a number of events to bring people together. In June, we hosted an event to talk about the legal issues related to immigration and got some legal experts at the Cambridge Public Library. This is our second event to bring all of us together to hear stories, because that's where it really hits you. That's when it touches you. And I think it's really important to share these narratives with each other and to feel a sense of connection and community. We are also hosting another event on October 29th at the Cambridge Public Library that will focus on the issue of trauma, which many in our community are facing, many in our community and beyond. So, this opportunity, and we are also grateful to be in the midst of this fabulous installation by Teresita Fernández, and you'll hear more about it. But it was inspired by a piece by James Baldwin, and I want to read you just a small quote, which to me sums it up for all of us. And it says, "If a society permits one portion of its citizenry to be menaced or destroyed, then very soon, no one in that society is safe." And that is, the true sense, I think, of what we all need to grapple with and make sure that we are pushing back against. We are a community of immigrants. All of us, our ancestors came here as immigrants, and it behooves us to actually treat those who are coming after us with the same dignity that was afforded to us. So today, we will give voice to our neighbors through stories and poetry. We want to send the message that Cambridge stands with immigrants. And I have this wonderful little, what do you call it? Badge, whatever. That says Cambridge stands with immigrants. And you've probably seen this around the city. But we stand with our immigrants, friends and neighbors, and with the children of immigrants. Our diversity is a value that we truly value and celebrate in Cambridge. I want to thank all of our speakers who volunteered to share their knowledge and their stories with you all. It's hard to share your personal stories, so I doubly appreciate that. A special thank you to the Harvard Art Museums for this installation and for inviting us to be a part of this. The Harvard University Committee on the Arts, En route, our community partner that works with high school students who are immigrants, fabulous organizations, everyone. And some wonderful poets, Dany, Joachim, Anthony, Febo, Enzo, Surin, and Regie, Gibson, who remind us to keep our most difficult subjects top of mind and challenge us to consider our humanity in thought, action, and word. You all enrich our lives and remind us to be a part of the active community. We are much stronger together. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Amanda Figueroa, who is going to talk a little bit about this installation. She is a PhD student and is doing this awesome thesis about this, and you'll hear more from her as she introduces herself. So Amanda.
Hello, everyone. My name is Amanda Figueroa, and I am so excited to welcome all of you to this beautiful installation, Autumn Nothing Personal, by Teresita Fernández. This piece was wonderfully commissioned by the Harvard University Committee for the Arts, and I came onto the project 2 years ago when I moved to the Cambridge area to start my PhD in American Studies here. My dissertation work focuses on three-dimensional contemporary art by Latina women, so it's kind of a perfect match. And since I began here initially as Teresita's research assistant and now focusing on the public programming such as tonight's event that take place in this space and have taken place all month long, two really key components of this work have risen to the front of my mind, which is not to say that they are at all the only components. I think we can all guess that art is what you want it to be in a lot of ways, but these are the two components that I've seen most activated in this space and most cared for and most endorsed by our community members who have really taken ownership in the most powerful and beautiful ways. The first of those components is, of course, the James Baldwin essay, Nothing Personal, which inspired the title and inspired a lot of Teresita's thinking about contemporary issues. That's an essay that was written in the 1960s, but as we have seen in all of the public readings that we've done here in the space, and I think as a lot of our community members have realized doing their own personal readings of it, so much of it rings true today. I'm certainly thinking of the very appropriate title that the Carpenter exhibition gave to their conjoint exhibit of some photography and Baldwin's historical premise, which is called Time Is Now. If you haven't gone to see it, please do. And the issues raised by Baldwin in that piece, I know we'll touch on here today in our conversations and in themes that are going to be raised by our poets. But for Baldwin, a key issue at the front of his mind was injustice. Injustice at an interpersonal level, injustice in the way we treat each other. And I'm so happy that we got to partner with the Cambridge Community Foundation, who is also today in 2018 so consumed with fixing that injustice. The second component, of course, which I'd like to touch on, is another type of injustice, and I'm thinking specifically of spatial injustice. There are so many parts of our society, people in our society, that become invisible because they're not afforded space to be seen, to be made visible. Certainly one of those issues is immigration. Certainly some of those issues we see on a micro level here at Harvard around communities of color here at Harvard, student organizations who desperately want a place to be seen, a place to raise their issues, but have been so far unable to be given that space. And so what this wonderful installation does for us is it makes a space. It makes a landmark here in a part of the Tercentenary Theater, which previously was completely transitory. You can see the way the paths intersect here. I, for one, spent 2 years on this campus, and I never paused in this space until this was here. And so speaking for myself, and I hope speaking for so many people who have worked on this project and contributed their programming and contributed their ideas to capitalize on this installation by activating it as a meeting place, as a stage, as a podium, has been so powerful, and I'm so excited to share that with you guys here tonight. Thank you so much.
Buenas noches. Mi nombre es Paola Ozuna, y yo soy un inmigrante. Good evening, my name is Paola Ozuna, and I am an immigrant. I also work at En Route, the wonderful nonprofit organization that supports students in Cambridge and Somerville. And today, yes, get to En Route. And today I'm going to be reading the last portion of James Baldwin's essay that inspired this installation. People are defeated or go mad or die in many, many ways. Some in the silence of the valley where I couldn't hear anybody pray. Many in the public, sounding horror where no cry or lament or song or hope can disentangle itself from the roar. And so we go under, victims of that universal cruelty which lives in the heart and in the world, victims of the universal indifferent to the fate of another, victims of the universal fear of love, proof of the absolute impossibility of achieving a life without love. One day, perhaps, unimaginable generations hence, we will evolve into the knowledge that human beings are more important than real estate. And will permit this knowledge to become the ruling principle of our lives. For I do not for an instant doubt that I will go to my grave believing that we can build Jerusalem if we will. The light that's in your eyes reminds me of the skies that shine above us every day. So wrote a contemporary lover out of God knows what agony, what hope, and what despair. But he saw the light in the eyes, which is the only light there is in the world, and honored it and trusted it, and he would always be able to find it, since it is always there, waiting to be found. One discovers the light in the darkness, and that is what darkness is for. But everything in our lives depends on how we bear the light. It is necessary, while in darkness, to know that there is a light somewhere, to know that in oneself, waiting to be found, there is a light. What the light reveals is danger, and what it demands is faith. Pretend, for example, that you were born in Chicago and had never had the remotest desire to visit Hong Kong, which is only a name on a map for you. Pretend that some convulsion, sometimes called an accident, throws you into connection with a man or a woman who lives in Hong Kong, and that you fall in love. Hong Kong will immediately cease to be a name and become the center of your life. And you may never know how many people live in Hong Kong, but you will know that one woman or one man lives there without whom you cannot live. And this is how our lives are changed, and this is how we are redeemed. What a journey this life is, dependent entirely on things unseen. If your lover lives in Hong Kong and cannot get to Chicago, it will be necessary for you to go to Hong Kong. Perhaps you will spend your life there and never see Chicago again. And you will, I assure you, as long as space and time divide you from anyone you love, discover a great deal about shipping routes, airlines, earthquake, famine, disease, and war. And you will always know what time it is in Hong Kong, for you love someone who lives there. And love will simply have no choice but to go into battle with space and time, and furthermore, to win. I know we often lose, and that the death or destruction of another is infinitely more real and unbearable than one's own. I think I know how many times one has to start again, and how often one feels that one cannot start again. And yet, on pain of death, one can never remain where one is. The light, one will perish without the light. I have slept on rooftops and in basements and subways, have been cold and hungry all my life, have felt that no fire would ever warm me, and no arms would ever hold me. I have been, as the song says, booked and scorned, and I know that I will always be. But, my God, in that darkness, which was the lot of my ancestors in my own state, what a mighty fire burned. And in that darkness of rape and degradation, that fine flying froth and mist of blood, through all that terror and all that helplessness, a living soul moved and refused to die. We really emptied oceans with a homemade spoon and tore down mountains with our hands. And if love was in Hong Kong, we learned how to swim. It is a mighty heritage. It is the human heritage, and it is all there is to trust. And I learned this through descending, as it were, into the eyes of my father and my mother. I wondered when I was little how they bore it, for I knew they had much to bear. It had not yet occurred to me that I would also have much to bear, but they knew it. And the unimaginable rigors of their journey helped them to prepare me for mine. This is why one must say yes to life and embrace it wherever it is found. And it is found in terrible places. Nevertheless, there it is. And if the father can say, "Yes, Lord," the child can learn that most difficult of words, "Amen." For nothing is fixed forever and forever and forever. It is not fixed. The earth is always shifting. The light is always changing. The sea does not cease to grind down rock. Generations do not cease to be born. And we are responsible to them because we are the only witnesses they have. The sea rises. The light fails, lovers cling to each other, and children cling to us. The moment we cease to hold each other, the moment we break faith with one another, the sea engulfs us and the light goes out. And it is my pleasure to introduce you to 3 of our magnificent en route students who will be sharing their stories tonight. We have Josee, Christian, and Sam.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Josee Stephen. I'm 18 years old and a senior at Cambridge French and Latin School. I'm from Haiti and I speak 3 languages, which are Asian Creole, French, and English. So this evening, I'm here to talk about my experiences in the U.S. I came to the U.S. in 2016, 2 years ago. At the beginning, it was strange and stressful because I had to leave my country and had to adapt to a new environment and culture. People think and have different perspectives. Therefore, I had to adjust to that. As time went on, I started to be comfortable in this country. The language barriers were my biggest challenge when I arrived here. I was afraid to speak up because of mispronunciation and accent. Then, making friends was another challenge because I was shy and I felt like a stranger. I felt like I did not belong to the community. I overcome these things when I first joined Enwood. Enwood helped me develop many skills. I also learned how to be proud of myself and my nationality. Since then, I was not afraid to speak up, not ashamed of my accent. I had support at school and Enwood. I also had teachers and friends who always got my back since I arrived. I feel Cambridge is my home because people are welcoming and are supportive at the newcomers. It is a safe and diverse city. On the other hand, Haiti is where I feel the most comfortable. Thank you for listening.
Hello there. My name is Sam Saha, and I'm from Bangladesh. I moved to the United States 2 years ago. I had a feeling that United States is the place. It would be a fancy place, different than any other country in the world. First, I thought I don't have to study anymore. After I move here, I'll get a job right away. Then I will make lots of money and go to the parties. When I first arrived, me and my family had to live in Acton because my uncle lives there. But there were not that many job options for my parents. So we decided to move to Cambridge so that my parents could get a job and we could live in a house and we could go to school. However, I couldn't speak English very well. I was hard to understand. It was hard to understand whatever the people are saying around me. I've been struggling in school a lot, making friends, to complete a task, and to focus on certain things. Because everything was in English, I was discouraged and overwhelmed and did not want to do my work. In my country, I had a habit of reading lots of books. But when I moved here and everything was in English, I lost that habit. I also had an accent. I was feeling like people would make fun of me if I asked questions to my teachers, and that discouraged me. But in school, the English classes were very helpful because in the class, the other people faced the same problem as me. I also got involved in en route and had a mentor and an internship. This program helped me in speaking English, reading, and writing. I also got skills and learned how to choose what is right, how to help people, to get engaged, not sitting like a duck in the house. I feel Cambridge is my home because there are lots of people like me who had to face same problem as me and same culture as me. Also, Cambridge provides lots of opportunity to live a better life. Poor people are getting free stamps, good clothes. There's no discrimination between rich people and poor people. Rich, poor, black, white, immigrant, resident, all are equal here. That's why I'm feeling Cambridge is my home. I hope it will give me all the opportunity I need. Thank you.
Wow. Hello, everyone. Can you guys hear me? Yeah, okay. Nice work, Sam. That was really nice job. I really liked your speech. And yours too? Wait, where are you? Oh, there you are. I don't know your name, sorry. I'm sorry, guys. I don't have a speech. I mean, I didn't write one. I've been very busy with 2 jobs in school, so sorry about that. But my name is Christian. I am from Honduras. Does everyone know where that is? Yes, great. I was afraid maybe you guys didn't know where it was.
Close to Mattapan, right?
Yeah, very close, very close. I think you're going the right way. I came here 4 years ago. When I came here, en route wasn't in Somerville yet because I'm from Somerville. Sorry, I didn't mention. But en route wasn't there to help me, so I had to be my own man, you know, do my own things. And also, I didn't know everyone. I came here just with my dad and no one else. I didn't know anyone else in the school, outside, nothing. So school was extra hard for me, super hard. Not having friends, not knowing everyone. You could imagine that, right? Super hard. But gladly, I got a girlfriend that she spoke English and she taught me. And that was really helpful, and you never know how helpful that was. But, you know, unfortunately, I couldn't keep her, but that's okay. Well, you kept it English. I kept English, yes. I did that. People said that one thing other people can't take from you is your knowledge. So, and well, I was in class, right? How that was is was like my teacher. She spoke Spanish, and she was really helpful. My English teacher, that's the one I'm talking about. She was really helpful, and most of the students they didn't know English as well. So I felt right, but when I was in the hallways or when I was outside of school, it was everything so hard. Everything seemed like out of my league because I just didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to fit in. And if I wanted to talk to people, how would I know that that person speaks my language? Because you see white people, they speak Spanish, but you don't know they do. And then you see a Latino guy and you go and talk to them in Spanish, but they are born here and they don't speak Spanish. So it's really hard. It's really hard. And I don't think that's just Spanish. It could be any language, right? But I think that one of the biggest challenge that I faced was learning the language because English is super hard, guys. I don't know how you guys do it. Honestly, it's super hard. But I kept trying and working hard and making new friends, and I made a lot of friends throughout the years, and that helped me build up my my skills in English and become better at them. So that was really great. And I don't know what else to say, guys. It's just like, yeah. I mean, now I'm here and life is good. Yes, like the fun, right? All right, thank you, guys.
Good evening. I am too from Haiti, but I'm now a Cambridge resident. And I'm a former poet populist of Cambridge, the city. I am currently a poet in residence at First Church in Cambridge, right behind Harvard, it's not too far. So tonight I have two poems for you. One, you'll hear the celebration in the voice of the immigrant. And the other one that I wrote specially for this event today, allow me to put some immigrant words in your own mouth because I have the poem for you that we'll be reading together when we get to it. So, that's the second poem that we'll read together. So the first one goes like that, and it says, Immigrant. I am from the ocean. I am from sugar cane. I am from writing poetry. I am from happiness. I am words with no curves. I am the mainland with no boundaries. I am hope tainted with shadow. I am heavy rain. I am here. I am now. I am staying. M'se petite lamé. M'se petite chanconne. M'se petite poésie. Moi sorti dans triple la joie. M'se parole sans chapeau. M'se grand la kou m'pa gen lisier. M'se l'espoir qu'en ballon braille. M'se tempête la pli. M'se saouya. M'se kounye. M'pa fait yon pakita. Yon panago. Immigrant. So in that first poem, this is when the immigrant says, so what? Let me celebrate my being an immigrant. I'm here, I am now, and therefore I am. But the life of the immigrant doesn't only have celebration. The second poem that we will read together, I wrote for today, it's called Lament 26. So you can imagine I have a few of them. An immigrant can be writing many lamentations for. Are we ready to do the reading, ladies and gentlemen? Now, all of us, we are doing the lamentation. This is it. Lament 26. You never asked me why I came, but simply call me immigrant. It never crosses your mind that the choice was never mine. You will never know the sacrifices, and all that we own was sold to secure me the crossing ticket. I was the household's only hope. Yes, you sure don't know that so numerous were my dreams. I saw a vibrant land and us living well. I saw joy, respect, and equity. I saw peace. Father had already vanished, and so many neighbors. There was a full hunt for young folks the regime tagged as enemies. You will never know the burden when all bets are on you as you are sent forward alone in the vast open world. You never asked why I came, you simply called me immigrant. Mother and sister cried when I left. I held my tears to end theirs. Here too, you don't know. Many times I held my tears. When grandma passed, I couldn't go. When my papers were still being processed. Sorry, you don't know how dreadful staring constantly at abundance when knowing that your people struggle simply to get by. Sorry you never know. Sorry you were never told that long before I came, your conquerors occupied us and left chaos behind. You never asked why I came. You called me immigrant because of my language, because I still speak of home, because I wander the street, because of my early morning prayers, because I'm at your school, because I'm at your work, because I dare to be. It never crosses your mind that the choice was never mine. Thank you.
What's up, party people? If you alive, make some noise right now. I don't know about you, but I'm a little chilly. So I would just like us to do some stuff together to get a little warmed up, you know what I mean? So I'm gonna ask for some call and response in just a second. But before I do that, I just need to put some things in context. First of all, hello, my name is Febo. I'm from Lowell, born and raised, 978 Mill City all day in the building, all right? But I am also, that's what I'm talking about. Gotta get yourself a friend like Regie. Now I mean, get yourself a friend like Regie, and then you're all set. I am Puerto Rican. I was born here. My parents were born and raised in Puerto Rico, and they met in Lowell and then had me there. And so for some of us, although we might have been raised here our whole lives, there's still a disconnect between identifying what home is. Home for my parents looks very different than what home does for me. And for a long time, when I lived here, I was made very quickly aware that sometimes I wasn't welcomed. And then when I went to Puerto Rico and lived there for a while, they really quickly realized that sometimes I wasn't welcome there either, just because I didn't have the exact same, vibe as them. But growing and living and learning is all about accepting. And so shout out to where it is that you're from. If it's here, if it's somewhere else, give love to it. Know what I mean? Repeat after me. Che che cole. Che che kofisa. Kufi salanga. Mama mamanga. Owe, 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 owe. I was grown from arroz con gandules, from sofrito and adobo can fix any meal, from my house on Sundays looking like a Goya commercial. I was grown from music, from calling Willie Colón and Hector Lavoe my godfathers, learning Spanish like Tu amor es un periódico de ayer, from calling Big Pun and Terror Squad my cousins, learning my own language like that in the middle of Little Italy, little did we know that we riddled to middlemen that didn't do diddly. I was grown from cobblestone streets, from hearing, I can't wait to leave this place, to knowing what it's like to run for my life, from having outsiders know more about my city than I did, from being surrounded by people that hate their own skin. I was grown from this skin, from not being dark enough to hang with the Ricans, from not being light enough to hang with the whites, from being confused with a sit at lunch, from not knowing who has my back when I get into fights. I was grown from hers, from my mother bringing me into this life, from my best friend showing me what to do with my life, from my first love making me question my life, from my second love making me question my life, from my current love making me thankful for life, for being thankful. I was grown from being thankful, from knowing what love is from parents who love each other, from knowing what love is from parents who hate each other, from knowing that sometimes that's what love is in a Spanish household, from having lived in the city and in the campo, from falling asleep to police sirens and to coquis, from experiencing all 4 seasons in summer all year round. Yeah, I was grown from do-rags and Timbs, from buying 2XL t-shirts and 40 waist jeans when I weighed 135 pounds, from not knowing where I fit in, from waking up every morning and wearing clothes that I did not fit in. I was grown from the pen, from listening to Mos Def and reading Shakespeare was just a common weekend, from losing my notebook in high school and swearing I will never write again. But I was grown from trying again, from my mother being forced to drop out of school to watch over her siblings, then getting her GED, then getting her bachelor's, then getting her master's, then becoming a teacher, just so she can come home and have plenty of time to tuck my sister and I into bed. For my father, being the youngest of 12, watching his father die from Alzheimer's when he was 9, then watching 7 of his siblings do the same in the last 6 years, knowing it will happen to him. But waking up yesterday, running 5 miles, then going to work, and waking up today and doing the same thing again. See, I was grown from being proud, from wearing the red, white, and blue and 1 star on my chest, from having the Merrimack flow through my veins, from having Febo as my last name. I was born with Febo as my last name, and if I had to be born again, may I be born with everything exactly the same. Okay, cool. All right. I'm starting a GoFundMe for the rest of my pants and some socks. If you want to donate, you know what I mean. We can talk later. If you have ever turned to food for comfort, make some sound. So you already know what it is. Sometimes food is very much connected to culture and very much connected to home. My mother taught me about home with food. My grandmother taught me about home with food. And I myself, when I moved out, realized that I couldn't survive just off of cereal and wheat thins. So I started cooking. And in cooking, I started to have a much deeper connection to my own culture. And this poem, True Story, happens because it needed to. This is my last poem. Thank y'all so much. Let's make it happen. Tonight, I'm cooking because I miss the creation my hands can make. Too often I focus on my knuckles, but tonight I'd rather use the precision of my fingers to cut a plantain. Place them in a pan and wash them tan in oil, like if I never moved from Puerto Rico would my skin be tostones brown. How I cook to feel closer to home. How this has nothing to do with who can cook better and everything to do with the man on the train that yelled, "English, please!" when I was just giving directions to someone in Spanish. How he's trying to claim space for his ignorance by diminishing my culture. How there is no correct way to be Latino in public after being told to shut up without proving that person right. So tonight, I need to cook. I need to take something dead, massage it in adobo, let it get loose to the song of oil and sweat, and watch it give life to those that eat it. Tonight, we will eat. Tonight, we will praise over our food and not worry about the language we do it in. Tonight, the stereotype of being Latino and loud does not exist here. We are all too busy reteaching our mouths how to be a host for this food, how to leave room for dessert, because there is always dessert in my house, and they all have names that don't have names in English, because when you taste this good, there is no need for translation. There is no English, please, for flavor, for tradition that keeps culture alive, because we all have to eat, because we all have to live, because what's the point of doing either without a little sazon, like the next person that yells English, please, when I am just giving directions to someone in Spanish, must be bitter. Like, they must be what they eat. Like, tonight, I will be an island. Thank y'all so much, appreciate it.
All that talk about Big Pun and Terror Squad make me homesick, because I grew up in New York, and so thank you for that. What a lovely crowd. It's so wonderful to be here. I love fall, and this is officially our kickoff, I think, into the fall weather. My name is Enzo Surin. I was born in Haiti. I came of age in New York, and before I left New York, I was given poetry to go and conquer the world. So let's see how we can do this tonight. I want to share a poem with you that's really a medley of different things, because when you talk about immigrant, it's very hard for you to define what immigrant is. And part of the story is the loss of voice. And when I hear the students talk about how much they had to silence themselves, it reminds me of my own experience. Know one thing, that your accent is proof that you have a voice. It's not a lack of a voice, it's proof that you have a voice. And poetry actually became the way that I expressed myself, because I was fearful of the accents and everything else. But on paper, I found this freedom. And hopefully, through many more poems, I'll continue to express my freedom in this way. But not everybody experiences freedom here. And so today, the poem I'm sharing with you is a medley of different experiences of the immigrant experience. I fear I have nothing to give. I have so much to lose here in this lonely place. Last week, a brother died, and the most common talk on the corner and in the ether was not of his death or his life before, but why was I writing about something already done? Because silence is not a luxury. Across a young black torso, someone keeps writing F you with a Deccan clip. It turns out there's much left to fear. Someone keeps writing and writing and writing and writing. Someone you know, someone you call father or call brother, delivers a gasping contusion, blocks commotion, bids for proof of wrongdoing. We blue, not just blue-collared. These rounds mean we don't matter. Not like a blue coat navigating the same streets on their way home, yet we too are on our way home. I've been accused of flunking a test before I took it. As if I studied night and day and bombed it. I did not. Results were waiting for me when I came bustling out of my mother's womb, her pride and joy, whose pigment she feared there on her breast would eventually test hope's resilience. I am regaining memory every day, cataloging names and dates and places I was never supposed to travel to on my own without risking rope, branch, and a gullet full of bullets. Why was I writing about something already done? Because you can feel eyes clocking your arraignment, and the city behind you feels like a gone world, and your weeping becomes the only way to claim your innocence. Because you know looking like someone who fits the description is another way of saying there is nothing you can do about this, and they can't do anything that they want to you. Because when I boarded a train and the sign reads, "This could be you," it doesn't mean you. You are not the they of them. in advertisements. You are the dead arrayed in time of Pablo Neruda's The Chosen Ones, the butt of jokes and machetes. You are the withheld sneeze. You are the closed mouth cough, a cop yawn. You are hearsay. Why do I write about something already done? Because when there is nowhere else to go but back into the corner of the body's sanctuary city, when every turn you turn, it's your back up against the wall. It's days spent in tuck and rotation, forgetting the seasons of being open enough to touch, because you know too well how it feels to wake up with an apocalypse inside and the eros of being gully. How the struggle often breaks into a factory of tears without warning, when it takes just one word or a gaze to make a joke out of the promise someone will always love you and care for you. When you learn quickly the limitation of hems, of fear bigger and wider than your eyes and mouth. Last week a brother died, and the most common talk in the ether was not of his death or his life before death, but why was I writing about something already done? Because the body is an essay of bones to be read alive, best when read alive. Because I've not seen a poem clot blood. I've not seen a stanza bring peace in my hood. I've not seen a metaphor miss its target and hit bone. I've not seen a rhyme heal wounds. And if one poem could change the circumstance, I'd be buried in the solace of meters. Until then, I'll keep on writing until my lines can stop a bullet. Because silence is not a luxury. Because silence is not a luxury. Thank you.
Good evening to everybody. Thank you for coming out for such a worthy cause. Community speaking to each other. As an African American, it's always gratifying for me to be amongst people who share an immigrant experience. It is sometimes not quite understood that the African American experience is not an immigrant one. It is very different than the experience of most of the people who've come to this country. That many of the people who come to this country, you're coming because there was something better that you were going toward, and something you were leaving that was not as good probably. And then for African Americans, arguably based upon what we got once we got here, it was better where we came from. So having this discussion with each other is always a beautiful one, because this is what it means to be an American. And I appreciate that. And what Geeta was speaking about earlier, about the stories, about understanding. Forgot what the writer said, that the universe is not made of atoms, it is made of stories, right? This is the thing that brings us together as a human species, since we sat around that fire in Africa telling each other about who we are and what we're about and where we come from and what we had experienced. And that's what we're here to do today. And what always galls me is when I have to hear ignorant people whose families were immigrants, who fled from so many bad things, bad-mouthing other people who've come to this country fleeing from other bad things. And sometimes I find that those people are in my own family, my adopted family that I've married into. And when we're sitting around and we're eating our corned beef and cabbage, and I'm starting to hear all of this craziness coming out of the mouth of my father-in-law, and I have to remind him of why his ancestors came here. And so I go to song, and I go to poetry, and I go to story. Imagine for a minute you're an indigent immigrant, a refugee seeking a safe place to be. You traverse over the earth, the sand, the sod, and the sea in search of a turf that'll simply let you breathe. You arrive to a place that is claiming to be a land of peace, freedom, justice, and opportunity. And when you get to the gate, what is it that you see? A bunch of great Americans telling you you got to leave. Now, what I say next gonna get some upset, but some Americans I know come off as hypocrites, because some Americans I know, well, they seem to forget that some of them are the descendants of indigent immigrants. Forget how some ancestors fled anti-Semitism, or how some ancestors fled from potato famine, or how some ancestors fled from the dictator's cannon, and then they get here and act like they cannot imagine what it must be like to have to run and take flight from your home and your country because you fear for the lives of your family, worn by war's tragedy, political insanity, or unforeseen calamity. Think about it. Where would you be if others had just callously sent your ancestors back into all that brutality instead of opening the hand of humanity that ain't the great America that I want to see? Somewhere in a harbor between two cities. There's a green lady standing with chains at her feet. In her right hand is a torch that, when lit, its flame represents the light of freedom. And the name that she's been given is the mother of exiles. That means every refugee is her child, see, meant to be nurtured to full maturity. And there's an inscription written on the pedestal she stands upon. Look closely and read along. It says, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shores, send these, the homeless tempest tossed, to me." Now those words, written by the descendants of an immigrant, seem to me to make something ring as quite resonant, that offering an immigrant and a refugee a safe place of residence is what it really means if you want to be a great American. In case we haven't figured it out, we need to stop being nice to people. We got to give up the niceness to be good. Forget the polite conversation. When we're talking about people's lives, when we're talking about the destruction of human beings, when we're talking about policies which are guaranteed to cause unnecessary suffering and death, we cannot be at eating our turkey with our families and letting that slide. We got to refuse to let ignorance slide, because the one thing I found out about ignorance is that it really doesn't whisper. It has a tendency to speak loudly and boldly, and to open its mouth so that good won't challenge it. Forget being nice. Niceness is over. Some years ago, many years ago, some of you might remember this, there was a talk about this mosque at Ground Zero. Anybody remember that? Yeah, except that it wasn't really a mosque and it wasn't really at Ground Zero, but to hell with the truth. I mean, why let that get in the way of political posturing? And it was at that time, too, that I was teaching my son, Jordan, about one of the greatest songwriters this country has ever produced, Johnny Cash. If you listen to Johnny Cash, there's a song he has called "One Piece at a Time." It's all of the protagonist is an individual who works in a Cadillac factory. However, he cannot afford the fruit of his labor. Can you believe that? So he decides what he's going to do is he is going to liberate, steal a Cadillac. And how is he going to do it? One piece at a time. So he takes out a carburetor one day, he takes out some tires the next, he takes out a muffler, blah, 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 blah. And next thing you know, he builds this car. Now it's this patchwork of all kinds of stuff, and he starts it up. It starts up really rough, but it finally goes and he gets it rolling on the street. And somebody comes up to him and they go, "Dude, what the hell kind of car is that?" Now it took him a couple of decades to assemble it. So he says, "Well, it's a 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57. And at that point, that's when the poetry happens. Because I started thinking about that car and thinking about this country. And how that car was made up of all of these different parts from different places. And about how this country is made up of these different people, different ideas from different places. And then the intersectionality happened. And then my grandmother's voice came in. It says, "You know what? It's sure enough ugly. But it stays on the road." And so I guess this is for us. This 300 and some odd million member of this tribe we call Americans. And it's in the voice of Johnny Cash. Because whenever, as an American, whenever I get into serious philosophical quandary, I turn to our philosophical musics. And that is country and blues. I was at this one fancy coffee store next to a woman with looks I'd never seen before, but she seemed to have much charm and style and grace. So I went to the counter and I ordered a drink. It was an iced cappuccino with soy, I think, but I was preoccupied with trying to surmise her race. It seems she wasn't quite white, she wasn't quite black, she wasn't quite this, she wasn't quite that. I guess she wasn't quite anything, I suppose. Now, I didn't want to harass her or come off crass, but the question was burning and I had to ask, and she said, "Save your breath, I can guess what you want to know." See, everywhere I look, folks stare at me, always trying to decode what I'm supposed to be. But truth is, mister, calculating me ain't so easy as you can see. So since you got the question, I'll take the time and keep that question from smoking your mind. Just buy my coffee and I'll tell you just what I be. So I said, no sweat, that's a bet. I'm always curious to know what I don't know yet. And for me, that's worth a cup of Joe or maybe even two. So I reached in my pocket, pulled out the money, paid for the coffee and said, there you go, honey. Now sit down, girl. Tell me, what in the world is you? Well, that's when she took a deep breath. She said, well, Jew, Italian, Haitian, Dominican, African, Asian, Mexico, Puerto, Nigeria, Brazilian's what I am. And I'm knit to fit like a patchwork quilt, and from my sweat this here country's built, but keep it simple. Stupid. Call me an American. Now you can just call me American. You can just call me American. Though sometimes I ain't quite sure just what that means. But from sea to shining sea, there are 300 million me's. Red, white, and blue, and every in between. So we rapped about democracy, about what makes ours different than them ancient Greeks. We broached subjects most folks will tell you is taboo. We talked about love and religion and politics, the Taliban and the Dixie Chicks, Democrats, Republicans, and them green rainbows too. We spoke lovingly mostly about Barack Obama. We joked about Trump and all his drama and, wondered whether or not our economy is still bouncing back. About whose fault it's going to be when our climate changes of trucks and such and good shooting ranges and why I prefer a PC but she likes a Mac. Yeah, we yacked so much we lost track of time, and though we differed, we began to find that she and I was quickly becoming friends. And then she looked at her watch and said, oh, gotta run, but thanks for the talk. I've enjoyed it, hon. Who can say maybe one day we'll see each other again? And as we both shook hands and said no more, she grabbed her purse, headed toward the door. That's when some dude looking real confused comes over real slow. He's like, say, buddy, seem like you know that woman. You mind very much if I ask you something? I said, save your breath. I can guess what you want to know. And that's when I took a deep breath. And I said, well, Jew, Italian, Asian, Dominican, African, Asian, Mexico, Puerto, Nigeria, Brazilian's what she am. And she's knit to fit like a patchwork quilt, and from her sweat this here country's built, but keep it simple, stupid, call her American. Now you can just call her American, you can just call her American, though sometimes she ain't quite sure just what that means. But from sea to shining sea, there are 300 million she's, red, white, and blue, and every in between. Can y'all help me out? Now you can just call us Americans, you can just call us Americans, though sometimes we ain't quite sure just what that means. But from sea to shining sea, there are 300 million we's, red, white, and blue, and every in between. On behalf of the Cambridge Community Foundation, we want to thank you all for coming out. Thank you for being concerned about this subject. Remember to get out there. Don't be nice if it means sacrificing being good. Be good first, worry about nice later. Y'all be good.